yeah, just have more self-confidence than you think you've got. Fake it till you make it, and then when you've made it, it's great. It's amazing.
You're listening to the Apoyo podcast, brought to you by Apoyo app, available on Apple App Store and Google Play Store. Hi guys, so this week's guest is Holly Turner, who is a recent media production graduate from the University of Lincoln. We talk all things postgrad, her experience since leaving university, her new job at Radio BBC Lincolnshire, and how she's found the transition from university to work. If you're a third year like I am and you're beginning to feel a little bit stressed, wondering what's to come after university, after graduation, this is the episode for you. And she offers plenty of good advice, so you definitely want to keep listening.
When I first left university, I had already applied to do a master's in MA film production, and I was also looking into like job careers, and luckily before I left uni I secured a job at the BBC Radio Lincolnshire via doing Brayford Radio, and I also work for BBC Introducing and also secured a job at BBC Introducing in like the southwest, so like Cornwall, Devon and Somerset.
Oh, okay, cool. Would you say that it was quite a daunting time trying to find that job and apply for your masters and stuff? Was it quite overwhelming? How would you describe that experience?
Yeah, I think it's always going to be kind of like overwhelming, kind of trying to imagine yourself like leaving uni, because I think you get so used to being a university student and having that security of, oh, I'm always going to study, I'm always going to have like things to do, and you know, I'm nowhere near like needing to go into full-time work. And then I think suddenly being in that position where I had to self-fund during my masters, I was like, oh gosh, like I'm gonna have to like actually go out and get a job and work hard, and it was definitely daunting.
Yeah, would you say you put more pressure on yourself, or was that an outside pressure, or?
Well, I'm quite a perfectionist. I like to do the best. So I would say a lot of it came from me, but I do also know about like the cost of living and all that sort of thing right now, is that I kind of knew I'd have to get a job. So I guess I would say a little bit more on my side, but definitely like societal pressures as well.
Yeah, of course. Have you found like any particular aspect quite difficult to adjust to, especially with working in radio? Did you think that you had enough experience going into that, or do you wish you could kind of have something else more to prepare you for that?
I mean, I definitely didn't feel like organised enough. I mean, I was unfortunately, I think, in my opinion, one of the most affected by the COVID cohort, because I kind of had only half my first year, barely any of my second and third in person, so I felt really underprepared. And I mean, I was talking to someone about it the other day. I was kind of saying, if I didn't do the work myself outside of university, I don't think I've actually had anything to show for what I've done for 3 years. So I do feel like I almost felt like I didn't have the skill set. Definitely had imposter syndrome, but I feel like something was missing. I feel like a lot of my cohort as well felt like by the time we were graduating, we were like, what have we actually got to show, and what skills did we actually get?
Yeah. Is imposter syndrome something you struggle with quite a bit then? Is there a way that you've learnt to combat that? Or?
Yeah, definitely struggle with imposter syndrome. I think having the step from student radio going straight into, you know, skipping like the community radio and kind of going like to the BBC, it's definitely daunting, and like was like, for like my imposter syndrome like went crazy, because, you know, I was going to like London and I was flying kind of just all around the country to do all these really cool things, and I was talking to all these really cool artists, and I was like, I don't feel like this is like real, and I don't know why I've been given this, but I like it, so I'll take it. So yeah, definitely a massive thing.
Do you think that there could have been anything put in place by maybe a university or an outside company just to sort of ease that transition?
My professional practice module I did in third year for media production. It was good because I got to work with Age UK to make a Christmas campaign. And that was really good because it was the first real client contact that we had where we had to work to a brief. It wasn't kind of, oh, here is a vague brief, here you go, here's a television, make 20 minutes of it and you can think about whatever you want, because realistically it's not like that. I was talking to someone the other day and kind of saying I wished that uni would kind of not focus on the like essay part, because I said in reality when I do radio I don't make a radio piece and then critically evaluate it in 3,000 words with a bunch of theorists. I look back on it and I critique it audibly and I discuss it with colleagues. So I think I wish that there was a bit more client work and in a way less focus on like the critical evaluation. I know they have to do it because of like rubrics, but in my head I was like, that time that I spent writing so many essays that was like kind of no use to me, I could have spent like meeting people from the industry or having new clients, or you know, having more time to kind of work on these huge projects, because the deadlines are so regular. You know, I think actually going into the working world is a little bit easier because I've not had as many like quick deadlines as I did whilst I was in uni.
So would you say it's more self-led now, or is it more working towards a client base with the work that you're doing now?
Well, I'm freelance, so technically, well, I'm a freelance under the BBC, and a lot of it is really cool, like self-led production side, so you get to kind of come up with things. So I do like a little 10 question segment for Lincolnshire, and I do something called Turner's Tip for the Southwest, and that's really cool, kind of coming up with these new concepts and events that you get to kind of go out and do. But it is working to like with the client, because you have to have everything branded, because obviously the BBC is such a huge organisation, it all has to be under the same brand. But I would say it's mainly self-led but under a brand, if that makes sense.
I get what you're saying. It sounds cool. It sounds really interesting as well, and it is nice to speak to everyone with these different experiences and how they've gone with it, because it's quite a broad course, our course, media production. There could be people doing all kinds of different things. Do you feel that maybe being a young woman has impacted that experience, made it any more difficult, especially if you are working in such a big company and there's people that are a lot older with more established connections?
No, I don't really think it's to do with being a woman. I actually think actually my office is pretty like woman dominated, which is a really nice sight to see. But I don't experience it directly from colleagues, but I think with people who I've kind of maybe worked with at some point, being young can definitely be almost like people like don't take you as seriously, because they're kind of like, you're fresh out of uni, you don't have this experience. And you know, I have come across people in the industry, not specifically in the company that I work for, that are kind of almost like discredit and invalidate the work that I've done separately and the achievements that I've got, because they're like, you're too young to kind of have those achievements, and you almost in a way, because you don't have 20 odd years of experience on your back, you're just not as good as I am. And it's like,
and I think everyone's been there once in their lives, no matter where you are, high up in a company. You've always been the new starter, you've always been the youngest in the company. It's quite a difficult one to navigate. Would you say that you've had to work a bit harder to make those connections than older people, or?
Yeah, I mean, I have been very fortunate as to when I've made the right connections, that connection has opened the door to many others, because I started doing student radio in first year, and then I kind of made connections to BBC Radio Lincolnshire during my first and second year through doing Brayford. And then as I became the station manager in third year, I got to work closely with Sam Shipley, who is a lecturer at the uni, and she was actually the one who put me forward for my role at BBC Radio Lincolnshire. And I feel like that was a really easy connection, but everything else has had to be me advertising, you know, really working on LinkedIn, kind of using all the different platforms, Instagram, weirdly, to try and reach out. I do feel like because you're younger, you have to really like almost like pitch yourself and kind of be like, I know I haven't got a lot of experience, but I would just love to, you know, work with you. I really like your work. Whereas I feel like if you had you're a little bit older and you had a bit more experience, you could be like, yeah, I just love to work with you. They're like, cool, yeah, you've got experience. Yeah, I feel like it is more difficult to kind of make connections.
I find as well it's quite difficult to accept that you are confident and you are good at what you do and put yourself forward. That can sometimes be quite difficult. Like, I suppose it's coming back to that imposter syndrome again. You don't feel like you are good enough to be putting yourself out there and reaching out to those people. So it's quite a difficult balance to strike, I feel.
Yeah, it is, definitely.
So our podcast and app is mostly focused on like well-being, and we're trying to work through techniques on how to ease this transition. Would you say that there's anything that you have put in place sort of to ease the transition? So either through journaling, or we were talking about mindfulness and desk yoga, all that kind of thing. Is that something that you're quite familiar with, or?
I mean, I would definitely say mindfulness is a great way to kind of do it. I think I don't know if it is mindfulness or not, but I definitely have to kind of let myself sit with my thoughts and kind of almost like dissect them and kind of, you know, say if like I get a thought of, I can't do that work, that seems way too above my level, and then I have to sit there and be like, okay, but what skills do I have which I can apply? And you can always ask questions, and you know, it will take you to that next level. And I kind of see careers as like a ladder, so I definitely think having a really like good like self voice and being able to interpret your thoughts really well has been a way of dealing with it. And I also think just having a planner, because I've bought like a big planner, it's massive, it's huge, and I write everything down, and I think if I didn't write anything down I would never ever get anything done, because I would lose track of everything. And I do think journaling works, but I do it via like blogs, and I also make YouTube videos, so a lot of it is just me doing like YouTube videos and talking to myself, and that works.
Yeah, I suppose that's kind of like a modern journal, I suppose.
Yeah.
Rather than the more traditional one, but I definitely think it can help, and especially when it is quite daunting in those transitions. It sounds like you had the right idea with the planners and stuff. Just one last thing, we always try and like to finish on like a nice, happy note. So do you have any advice for recent graduates or students who will be graduating in the near future?
Don't give up, because I feel like when it kind of gets a bit too close to... Don't give up, because I feel like when it kind of gets a bit too close to kind of the transition between like going into a job and kind of coming from uni, I feel like it's quite easy to just think, that's it, I've left uni, or I'm going to leave uni, and I don't have anything that's backing me up now, because I feel like you get quite comfortable in uni, but I think you kind of just need to be confident, kind of know that you've got it, you've worked so hard, and it's time to kind of showcase that skill, because you showcase it whilst you're in uni to a very select group of people, and I feel like when you're out in the world, that's your moment to kind of stake your claim, like, I am great, I am amazing, I can do this, and yeah, just have more self-confidence than you think you've got. Fake it till you make it, and then when you've made it, it's great. It's amazing.
Yeah, that's real good advice. I like that.